I would say it's Sollbruchstelle.
That's just one word?
It's just one word, yeah. Es por eso que solo conozco el género de reggaetón y no
Ah,
descubrí
okay.
mucho sobre las otras culturas hispanohablantes. J'avais, il y a une heure, une leçon avec une prof ما بدروس كتير العربي بس عم حاول استخدم اللغة.
All right, Emily, I have some rapid questions that I would love to ask you.
Of course.
First question that I have for you is what level would you say you have in each language?
That's a really good question. So, well, let's go down the line. I am between probably a C1 and a C2 in German at this point. And after that, with Italian, I would say a B2, like a solid B2. Definitely went down a little bit after not living in the country for sure. And then with French, a B2. I did do the Lingo to Sprint, and I did, I think, like participate in their classes labeled as such. Sometimes I don't feel B2, but I can at least communicate now. And then Spanish is definitely, I would say, between a B2 and C1. And then, oh, what's come after that? Turkish, I would say a solid B1. I'd love to get to B2, but the grammar is just all over the place, and I just haven't had time to even concentrate on it. But definitely solid B1. I could probably get around while traveling just by myself. And then, yeah, Chinese is just complete beginner. I can only say a few set phrases, so A0. And then with Arabic and Russian, I would say between A2 and B1 at this point.
What is your favorite word in each language?
That's a really good one. And I've thought about this a lot. So I think in German, I would say it's Sollbruchstelle, which is kind of like if you think about a Hershey bar, it's literally
Uh-huh.
describing that split of the Hershey bar, like a very specific split or like a separation.
Interesting.
I've never heard anyone use that word ever
No,
when speaking German.
and that's
But
that's just one word.
it's just one word, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Like you should, like literally the breaking point where it should split, something like that. So it's an interesting word. And then for Italian, well, for Italian, I really like cucchiaio just because it's really fun to say. But that one means spoon, which is kind of like a random word. And then oh, I think for Spanish, I actually learned a very recent word, and I used to dance a lot professionally. And I had recently, I still have contacts from just some of that work that I did in the past. And then recently I saw a work titled like A Papachar in Spanish. And it was a German choreographer who had named her work that. And I was like, I wonder what that means. I was like, that's so nice to just that's so warm, and that's what I feel with the little interaction with, I guess I'm not going to put it all under one label, right? But at least when I was with my Spanish speaking friends who are from Mexico, when I lived in Arkansas, when I was also in Panama, when I was also in Spain, like those kinds of places, I mean, they were just so warm. And I feel like that word really encompasses a lot of what, like the feeling that I experienced, just being really welcomed. And then for French, I think I really like pamplemousse again because it's just like I don't know. I would never say. I think it means grapefruit, but I don't think I would ever really
Grapefruit.
use it in any sort of context. I don't even really like grapefruit. However, that was literally the only French word that I could remember after not being in French class for a while. That was like from our mandatory vocabulary list where we had to learn all the fruits and everything. And for some reason that just stuck with me. So I guess that's also why I really like it. And then for Turkish, there are so many words in Turkish that I really like to say. It doesn't really have to do with the meaning, but I like how it's they just add these suffixes again and again and again on the end. So I think anything in Turkish that I say, it just sounds so elegant. But there is it's sort of like the suffix that signifies a future tense. And if you compare that, or if you pair that with ebil abul, which means to can in a sense, if I were to say anything like to be able to in the future, or to in order to know in the future, anything like that, it would always sound like ebilajam, abilajam, like that kind of
Interesting.
matching the vowel sounds as well with that, just depending on how the original word is spelled. So it sounds like a river. I can't really pick one in Turkish. And then I think for what have I already touched on? I think for Russian, I think I learned recently. Oh, what did I do? It's really hard because I haven't started again with Russian for the past few months. So honestly, it's hard for me to think about a word right now that I would really like to say. And then for Chinese, I mean, I only know the basics, but I do like to think that I'm getting better at the tones. So I really like saying the hen hao a lot because like I'm really working on that third tone, I guess, out of the four. So I've been saying that a lot, just like around my house. So that's a nice word. I think I touched on everything. Arabic. And then I think for Arabic, I would say nahwe is a good Arabic word that I like, just because it's really simple and it also talks about like hospitality and just being welcoming, um, showing that kind of welcome to others as well. Yeah, like what is your favorite word from French or Spanish so far?
So for Spanish, my favorite word is colocación. And it sounds very fancy, but it's a very simple word. It just means like the placement of something. Como que la colocación de mi teléfono, algo así. So it's a very
Mm.
simple word, but it just sounds so beautiful. And it comes from the verb colocar. So like the same thing like to
Mm.
place, or I think it's something like that, like to place, or it's something like that. But I love that word a lot. And in French, well, I can't say that many words in French properly, but I think my favorite one so far is bujo, bujo, like oficina, the office.
Yeah, that is a nice one. It's a
I
really
don't know how
nice
to say
one.
it properly. It's very hard for me to say.
It's always with like the EAUs at the end. Those
Yes.
sound very elegant to me for sure.
Which skill would you say is the most difficult to develop? So, in between writing, speaking, listening, and that's it, reading it.
That's a really good question. And I think for me personally, it depends on what level I'm at in each language. So
Mm,
I think, and also where I was on my language journey, when I didn't want to speak, that was obviously like the hardest to work on. And that was at the very beginning because I did not speak in either German or Italian, which were, my first foreign languages, for about 7 months, like right after learning them. And then I started gradually speaking. So that would have been the hardest. And then once I got to, I mean, those are one of my strongest languages. So once I got to maybe like a B2, then it became writing was the hardest because at one point, and
interesting.
I had tried to take all my classes in German as too, and eventually you just get corrections on writing as in, oh well, a native speaker wouldn't ever say that. Like you're saying it weird even though it's grammatically correct. So at that point it's like, wow, like you really have to have so much exposure to the language to write at that level. And then for languages that don't have the same like alphabet or script, and I would say I'm really fascinated by that. So I start with writing pretty early for those. Obviously, I do it more for those than in other languages that just have the Latin alphabet that I'm used to. So I think overall, though, speaking would be the easiest for me just because I've trained myself so much to just go for it. And then the hardest, depending on the level, if it's a higher level, it would still be writing. And then at lower levels, I would say it's listening, honestly. Yeah.
Listening. I'd agree with you.
Oh, yeah. It's
Yeah,
just like, and I don't know if you sense this too, because sometimes with listening, I don't understand anything. And then one day it just clicks. Like I can't express it better than that, but it just clicks for some reason. And before that, though, I feel completely lost, even though I can produce the language, right? Because as I said before, like I try to train myself to speak pretty early personally, but listening just kind of it just kind of turns on at some point, but I can never really know when. So,
completely understandable.
for sure.
How do you overcome stress and the feeling of being overwhelmed as a language learner?
Yeah, I think that's really important to address. And I think it really depends on the situation and also the season that I'm in emotionally. So if that stress were caused by an exam, if I were taking a true official exam, like a language institute, or I was taking a university exam, anytime that happened, then I mean, I would just go for it and study as best I could and hold my breath. So that's not really a strategic way to go about it, but it didn't hinder me in any way with that kind of stress. I was used to academic stress, and I still put myself under academic stress, as I think a lot of language learners do. But if it's stress that is born from just really being like putting your own pressure on yourself so much and being overwhelmed by your own expectations, whether those expectations are created from like what your past self wanted you to do and now you don't match up to that, or you feel overwhelmed by seeing everyone else seemingly doing so much more than what you're doing right now, or you're just overwhelmed by the future for any reason. Like anytime that I experience that, that's usually when I step back. And I even stepped back, I think, when I was forced to. I mean, I sometimes I was so burned out from the stress that my body just wouldn't let me go on. I couldn't really study anymore. The information just wasn't sticking, no matter how hard I tried, which then triggered like a 8 eight to 9 month break, I think, from any language that I was studying. Like, I mean, it
Wow.
got bad, and I couldn't go on. Um, so really stepping back and right now implementing like a rest day. I'm still working on that in other parts of my life, but at least with language learning, I know that I have enough self trust to know that it's going to be okay and I'm not going to forget everything um, after one day or even 1 week. Like I really try to practice a lot more self compassion, and it's gotten me so much further, and it's gotten me further while making sure that I'm enjoying the process more, which is definitely something that I built up over the years. It definitely did not happen automatically, but just like being gentle with yourself, talking with yourself as if you were talking to your friend, um, and just knowing that the season of life is not going to be forever, whatever that means for you. And there's always going to be changes. So, enjoy it for what it is. And please include some kind of rest for yourself, whatever that means, if it's a
Hmm.
day or if it's a week. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll definitely say that has been probably one of the hardest things for me to do is to just like sit down and relax and not be fearful of losing my Spanish speaking skills, my listening skills, all that. So I definitely have struggled with that a lot and have burnt out. Well, one time for sure, like in a bad way. The second time wasn't much of a burnout, but I definitely had burnt out once just because I was just studying, just as much as possible, just trying to pound the Spanish into my mind. And yeah, and my body ended up telling me to sit down. You're not doing it anymore. So
Mm-hmm.
that definitely does happen. Got to take care of your body. What are some of the best language learning tips that you would give to a beginner language learner?
Mm-hmm. Well, that kind of goes into my other answer, which that's a really good question. And I usually think about myself starting out, don't we all? But I would say that yes, you're going to see so many tips. You're going to be bombarded by all of these new apps that, especially with the age of AI coming upon us and technology is going to be like growing to be even like a bigger part of our everyday lives, like language learning, and that field is obviously no exception to that. But I would say, even as you go through that and you find yourself wanting to make goal after goal after goal, there's nothing wrong with that. But really knowing that you're going to you're going to want to commit to learning more about yourself. And that can be from a linguistic perspective, like, of course, how do you like to learn? What methods do you like? Those kinds of things, because those tips are essential to know, and keep on exploring as you evolve, but also actively work on yourself just personally. Make sure you live, whatever that means for you, but make sure you still experience life in your own way, to keep you inspired, um, keep you going, especially when things in your studies aren't going the way you want them to, because that's definitely going to happen. Just know that, keep on working on yourself, because you're going to discover a lot of things, and maybe things that you're not super proud of that you have, maybe as you learn new languages. They do open so many amazing opportunities for you, but they also will make you confront yourself, personally, in a lot of ways, and just be ready for that, and just know that it's part of the process too.
Outstanding. Yeah, who would have thought that language learning would do all that, right? Make you confront
Crazy.
yourself.
It's crazy, and that's how I love to put it. Yeah, I mean, I love the opportunities that I've gotten from different languages, but it's really like, wow, what sometimes I've just over the years I'm like, what am I even doing now? Like, why am I doing this? What underlying feelings are really there that are driving my actions? If you really listen to that and lean into that, then I think people can get so much further in their language journeys if they apply that, plus all of the tips and tricks and, advice, typical language advice acquisition that we see on the internet too.
Ok, ahora yo quiero cambiar al español.
Por supuesto.
Y la primera pregunta que tengo para ti es, ¿cuál es tu género de música favorito en español?
Lamentablemente no tengo uno,
Ay,
porque no descubrí, no descubrí ninguna, o sea, descubrí un poco cuando estuve de vacaciones en Panamá, o sea, cuando estuve en el extranjero, en Alemania, y había planeado unas vacaciones en España. Por supuesto, fue, como rodeada por la cultura, durante unos días, pero, um, no sé, y también en Arkansas, cuando estaba viviendo allá, um, por supuesto, como dije antes en inglés, tenía algunos amigos de México, um, pero es que nunca he estado en un país hispanohablante durante más de unos días. Es por eso que solo conozco el género de reggaetón y no
ok.
descubrí mucho sobre, las otras, culturas hispanohablantes, lamentablemente. Entonces tengo que decir reggaetón, pero elegiría algo más, probablemente, si tuviera más ideas, sobre varias culturas. Sí.
Ok. Te mandaré unas canciones de bachata, merengue y salsa para probar.
Sí, por supuesto.
¿Y de qué país es tu acento?
Mi acento de España, y
De España.
sí, quiero que no sea así porque no me gusta mucho no sé, el sonido de este acento.
¿Verdad?
Prefiero el acento de México o de Panamá, o, también el acento de Argentina. Es muy fascinante, pero, sí, tengo un acento de España porque mis profesoras eran de España, O sea, también en Alemania tuve una profesora de México, pero nos enseñaba con un acento de España. No sé por qué, pero es
Ok.
así. Sí.
¿Y piensas que fue muy duro para desarrollar este acento español?
Am, no realmente, no para España. El acento para desarrollar un acento panameño, un acento, mm, mm, no sé, de Venezuela, también porque prefiero los acentos de Latinoamérica, porque siempre faltan am, algunas letras del alfabeto y no sé, me suenan am, muy hermosos, così, así, no en italiano, pero no sé, cambiar de acento después de haber desarrollado originalmente un acento bastante diferente, eso me resultaría muy difícil. Así que, um, no sé, mm, sí, al final me quedo con este acento de España, pero sí, prefiero escuchar acentos de otros países. Sí.
De otros países, ok.
Ujú.
Yo diría que mi acento favorito es el acento de RD, de la República Dominicana. Después de eso, quizás el acento cubano. Después, el acento de México. Los
Ujú.
tres mejores.
Sí, hablan muy rápido en la República Dominicana.
Así es. Por eso
Sí.
me había costado muchísimo para como aumentar mi comprensión auditiva y entenderles. Hasta hoy todavía me cuesta. Me cuesta entender un montón de mis amigos de RD todavía.
Pero es muy divertido, ¿no? Es un ejercicio muy divertido.
Claro que sí. Y toma mucho
Sí.
tiempo por eso. Como tienes que tener una estrategia para desarrollar un acento, por eso como me parece muy llamativo. ¿Y tienes una serie o una película favorita en español?
Si habías visto Los tigres no tienen miedo,
No, nunca.
nunca,
No.
pues mm, tiene que ver con, ¿cómo se llama en español? Es como el realismo mágico, no sé. Hay
Ok.
hay algo más específico que podría decir, pero hay realidad mezclada con fantasía, de esta manera. Y se trata de unos niños en México y creo que como el personaje principal es una niña que vuelve de la escuela un día y descubre que su mamá ya no está, am, y tiene que rescatarla y tiene también como pesadillas de ella, de su como fantasma y sí, no quiero decir más, más que eso,
Ajá.
ah, pero si tienes interés, es una película muy importante para mí. am, y sí, es mi favorita, de hecho.
¿Y cómo encontraste esta película? ¿De un amigo o en internet?
Mm, creo, o sea, un amigo am, que todavía tengo en Arkansas, de México originalmente, am, ha recomendado esta película y sí, pudimos ver esta película todos juntos y hay, hay como, ok, me olvido de la palabra, pero hay slang de de México que mi amigo tuvo que explicarme durante la película. Entonces
Ok.
fue algo muy interesante, sí. Pero él había descubierto la película, no yo.
Ok, qué chulo.
Sí.
Y bueno, ahora me encantaría escuchar unas frases en todos los idiomas que sabes o que
Mm,
conoces, si quieres.
sí, vale, porque estoy pensando en solo una frase que puedo decir en todos los idiomas. Es que, como dije antes, mis niveles son muy diferentes entre los
Claro que sí.
idiomas, pero sí, ya que habíamos hablado un poco en español, puedo cambiar. Also auf Deutsch hatte ich einen Unterricht. So, heute Morgen hatte ich einen Unterricht. Wir haben auch über den C1-Modellsatz diskutiert oder geredet. En français, j'avais il y a une heure une leçon avec une prof euh, de France ou de la France. Euh, بالعربي يعني ما بدرس كتير كتير العربي بس عم حاول استخدم اللغة بحياتي أكتر. اوكي Türkçe'de sadece yani sadece Türkçe'de konuştuğum bazı videoları yüklüyorum kendi YouTube kanalıma in italiano. Um, non lo so, no lo so. Me quedo sin palabras muchas veces, ¿no? Cuando no tengo
¿Está bien?
un tema. Sí, ok. In italiano sono riuscita a studiare in una scuola di danza dove l'ho imparato. Для меня очень полезно знать, что сказать на других языках, но очень сложно, потому что не знаю, не знаю, языки меняются мою жизнью. um, and what else? Okay, solo un par de frases en chino. Okay, 我想去你那儿吃或者现在几点钟 Sí, algo así. Creo que es todo. Creo que es
Qué
todo.
lindo, perfecto. Un fuerte aplauso. Wow. Y
Yeah. No,
ahora yo deseo hablar más idiomas por eso.
sí, sí, podemos charlar en más idiomas. También en francés, sí, cuando te sientes mejor para hacer eso. Sí.
Ajá. Pero cada idioma que hablaste sonó súper, súper lindo, cada uno.
Ah, gracias. Gracias. Me gusta trabajar en mi pronunciación también.
Ajá,
Es muy
sí,
divertido.
es bien
Sí.
importante. Y
Sí.
wow. Si, je ne sais pas beaucoup de français, mais j'aime apprendre cette langue. Et oui,
Oui,
c'est tout.
très bien fait. Très bien fait. Bravo.
Y aparte de eso, yeah, that's. I was acting like I could understand every single language, but I can't. Only the Spanish and not even the French.
No, I love it. I mean, I think that's like the first time that I think I guess I've tried to film very few videos using all of those languages, but it's been a very rare opportunity. So finally got to do it today, and it feels good. I think my brain is still on. I'd been telling you that I had just done a an Arabic lesson, so I think my brain is still a little bit on for for doing something like that. But I definitely have to be
Yeah.
in the right headspace for that for sure.
I'm still trying to comprehend how you can even juggle all that in your mind.
Oh
It's
my gosh! I
absolutely
mean,
amazing.
yeah. Well, I would say, I mean, I've had about 8 years to practice, so
Years.
it's definitely at the beginning it's like, oh, like I'm not sure I'm going in every direction that I can, but really with time though, time and persistence is what one needs really.
It's
Hmm.
amazing what humans can do, right?
It really is, truly.
Y para cerrar, por favor, si puedes compartir donde la audiencia puede alcanzarte. So, your social media, YouTube, all that good stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, of course. So my main channel is YouTube. That's what I'm on the most. It is Language Travel Adoptee, and then I also have Instagram, also under the same name. On Twitter, I am Langtrav Adoptee, and then I also have a podcast called the Language Wellness and Identity Podcast, where I talk a lot more about the really the underlying psychological effects of language learning and a little bit more conversation into how I've really been navigating the very complicated, what can be complicated emotions, learning heritage languages as well as other languages and juggling all of them too.
Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing those. And now, everyone who's listening right now, you just heard that you have a lot of content that you can binge watch or binge listen. So, thank you
Yeah.
very much for this conversation. Y aubento, o abiento, y hasta luego.
Hasta luego. Gracias, Joshua.